Welcome back, minors. My name is Nathan Asbell. I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
And hello, my name is Amber Johnston. I'm also a counselor at Student Wellbeing. And it's time for your morning cup of joe. Nathan, have you ever heard of attachment theory?
I have. It was created by John Bowlby, and there's another gentleman called Harlow. He did some work in that, and then later on, another woman by the name of Ainsworth was involved in that as well. So that's a little bit about that, but why do you ask?
Well, Harlow's kind of famous for the monkeys. Remember the Harlow's monkeys?
Oh, yes, Harlow's monkeys, the wire mother and the soft terry cloth mother. Yes.
Right. Well, the reason why I ask is attachment theory is what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So, my example for attachment theory is Batman, the Caped Crusader, and all the characters in Batman. Gotham is full of individuals with attachment issues.
So, the Caped Crusader, attachment issues. Okay, I'm ready.
So let's start talking about the kinds of attachment. There are 4 generally accepted types. You have anxious ambivalent, which is formed when a caregiver was inattentive but present. Then you have avoidant, caused by a caregiver that was not present. Anxious avoidant, which is caused by a caregiver that was inconsistent. They might be emotionally present at 1 minute and emotionally absent the next. And then you have secure, which is what we all strive for, and that's when a caregiver that was present and attentive. So, anxious ambivalent. You have any guesses on who that might be?
In the Batman world, there are a couple, but who do you have in mind?
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn, PhD.
Yep. Harley Quinn was raised in a dysfunctional home and decided to become a psychologist in order to deal with her trauma. She never dealt with it, and it's evidenced by her falling in love with the Joker and her later criminal escapades. In Harley, we see the separation anxiety common in anxious attachment, and she is very attached to the Joker to the point of almost obsession. She has no interests or hobbies of her own, and she's very much concerned with his approval. This changes later in the series as she starts trying to kill him. Yeah, because he's trying to kill her, but that's another podcast.
Right, so I know we've talked about Harley Quinn before, and I've asked you if you thought it might be Stockholm Syndrome, and your answer to me was?
No, it absolutely is not Stockholm Syndrome.
And why is that?
The reason why I say it's not Stockholm Syndrome is because she was the person in power in that relationship. She was a brand new psychologist, and she was working in Arkham Asylum, and she actually asked to be assigned to the Joker. And then she's the one who broke him out of Arkham Asylum and started that relationship. And so when you watch through their interactions, she was actually filling a void in her own attachment by pursuing the relationship with the Joker.
Which is somewhat tragic because the Joker could not give her what she needed. And we do know, based on some of the work of Sue Johnson, that attachment styles can be changed in adulthood. It's difficult, but possible. But you have to have the right people around you, and Harley Quinn choosing the Joker, not a good idea.
Absolutely not. She was just recreating her relationships that she had with her parents. Because we can see in Harley some of the hallmarks of anxious ambivalent attachment. She's overly needy. She's lacking her personal boundaries. She allows him to physically and emotionally abuse her, much like the abuse she had when she was younger. And she's hyper fixated on Mr. J. She even when she gets rescued by Poison Ivy at one point, but then when the Joker shows up, she completely flips the script and is back to, oh, I'm so glad you came for me and everything, and everything is wonderful and he's the best thing in the world. And she reverts to fawning all over him. She constantly needs his approval and acceptance, and fawning is a defense mechanism and stress response.
Absolutely. Whenever we struggle with different things, we can fight, flight, freeze. But this newer one is fawning, where we seek relationships and we seek to have safety, security in the relationships of others rather than finding it for ourselves.
Right.
Right. All right. So okay, let's talk about the next one, avoidant. Who do you think in the DC universe and the whole Batman cartoon or comic book series is avoidant?
Batman, of course.
Right.
Batman was raised by his butler, Alfred, after his parents passed away. He was orphaned very young, and we presume that Alfred attempted to maintain that professional distance from his young charge. And that because he was an employee, he wasn't a caregiver. And we really see that in how their relationship develops and the fact that Batman would rather be by himself than be around other people. He doesn't have personal relationships. His preferred hobbies include brooding over the city, looking and designing wonderful toys in his Batcave and fighting crime.
The few relationships he does have, like for example, Vicky Vale, don't last. There is I think, occasional tryst with Catwoman, but those don't survive either. It's like he really just can't seem to attach. He can't seem to grip any relationship and hold on to it.
Right, and I have a fantastic quote that kind of embodies this. It says, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm even human anymore. Sex, love, even the slightest yearning I've repressed and rechanneled into the almighty will. How perverse it feels in her presence. Every relationship was a charade or some reluctant excursion I knew I could never compete. Vicky, Silver, Talia, Selena. She was the longest because she was safe. She was the enemy. She would always be the enemy. My criterion for a relationship, so many women. All those pretty party girls, their sweet smiles and simple hopes. But once the photo ops were over, so were they. Back in a limo, back to wherever they came from. I'm sure they wondered what went wrong. Was it something I said? Did I come on too strong, too clinging? Never knowing they stood a better chance with Freeze. The day I put this on was the end of me. Gotham would be safe, but there would be no rescue for Bruce Wayne. No love, no family, no real intimacy, no losing oneself in someone else, not in this life." And that's a quote from Bruce Wayne directly from the comic.
That seems really depressing and sad. I mean, some of the greatest joys we have in life are in relationships. And they're in the relationships we build with spouses, children, best friends. And no, for college students, it could be brotherhood in a fraternity or sisterhood in a sorority. It could be in the many different friendships you build as you're working on a design team. But all of these make life rich. And it's the ability to co-create and co-write life together. You both become an author in each other's life, and you both get to write the script together, and that's a beautiful thing. And it's really sad for me to think about, even though he's a cartoon character, comic book character, movie character, that Bruce Wayne will never have that ability to write that script ever again.
Right. And he could if he went to therapy and he sought counseling, but that's why we call it avoidant attachment, because if you notice, he's actually avoiding any kind of attachment to other people or any kind of interaction or any kind of intimacy with other people. It's pretty much like what it sounds. He avoids all attachments. He uses women as props for the camera and avoids all levels of intimacy with others. This was likely due to being orphaned at a young age and not having a primary caregiver.
Right. He's I hate to say lucky, but there's another attachment response called reactive attachment disorder, in which one it's a lot darker and a lot more difficult to work with. But I don't really want to get into that because it's not something that I think most students here at S&T probably deal with.
That one usually also happens when it's younger, like for younger children.
Like adoption at a very young age, or separation from a primary caregiver at like a couple of months old and things like that. So right.
Mm-hmm. So the next one is anxious avoidant. This is the come here, now go away attachment type. Who do you think that one would be?
There are a couple of people, but I think one of them would be the Riddler, but I think you may have someone else in mind.
I'm thinking the Joker. I think he fits perfectly into this one. So let's talk about the Joker. Joker has several backstories, so the one I'm going to use for this one is from the Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix. The Joker was raised by a meek, sickly woman in the movie, and she required him to be her caretaker. So she was physically present, but emotionally, she was having delusions, and she wasn't often mentally present. So, because of this, he was kind of cast as a caretaker for her, and his mother was not there emotionally for him to meet his needs consistently in any way, shape, or form. Later, he was adopted by his mother's boyfriend and subsequently was very brutally abused. And he had a tic which made him laugh at inopportune times. And his mother perceived that laughter as joy and told him it was joy, even though it wasn't joy that he was feeling. And she repeatedly told him he was happy, and he wasn't, and he began to use the laughter as a defense mechanism to push people away from real connection. The Joker and Harley, they get involved in a relationship. And the Joker repeatedly tries to harm her, beat her, kill her, constantly. It's almost a trope. And he's pretty brutally abusive towards her and verbally abusive towards her, just like his stepfather was abusive to him. But the counter of that is that at the same time, he cares for her very much. And he also takes care of her. And he nurtures her in some ways. He loves her. And when she tries to leave him, he chases after and draws her back in. And that's classic anxious avoidant.
Right. And so for the Joker, then, it's, I mean to you, I'm nasty, but when you leave, I'm going to chase you down, I'm going to chase after you, and really try to push back into the relationship. Mm-hmm. And her, with being the type of attachment she has, that's what she seeks. That's what, So it's a very kind of a dark mismatch for the two of them.
Right, absolutely. It's what feels safe for her because it replicates the environment that she was raised in. So she feels safe with that kind of attachment because it's familiar. And because it feels familiar, then that's absolutely not what she needs because right. she was raised in an abusive environment.
What's interesting is that oftentimes we do settle for what's familiar because it feels comfortable and safe, mm-hmm. rather than stretching out and seeking for something that's better. And so we get stuck in these cycles. And so she's stuck in a cycle, he's stuck in a cycle, Batman is stuck in no cycle because Batman is avoiding the cycle. But you can see how that cycle plays out and how not being in the cycle or the way that they engage in the cycle affects them.
And that's exactly how attachment disorders work, is because you get, like, if you have a parent that's avoidant and avoids that attachment and that person ends up being a parent, then it ends up passing on, and you have attachment issues get passed on from parent to child over and over again until somebody goes and addresses it and deals with their attachment issues. The final type we have is the one that we all strive for, and that's secure. So who do you think in the Batman universe embodies secure attachment?
It looks like that... I don't know. I'm not really big on the Batman. I'm more of a Marvel guy. I'm not big on DC, but who do you think would be or representative of that particular attachment style that's secure?
I would say Dick Grayson, who was Robin first. He was the first Robin, and then he later became the first Nightwing.
Okay.
So Dick grew up in a loving family. He was raised in the circus. He had parents that loved him, siblings that loved him. He was happy and everything was great. And his parents met his needs consistently. They were present emotionally and physically. And he had all that time to, grow up in a happy and healthy home. Then he became a superhero because his parents were brutally murdered in front of him. His whole family was, in an accident. And he actually wasn't present at the time, but the rest of his family was killed. And so he shows signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, but he definitely has the ability to form healthy relationships. While Batman is dark and serious and cold and kind of detached, Robin and / Nightwing is very light-hearted and he finds joy pretty easily in life, and he actually has close relationship with his teammates on the different teams that he's been part of. And when he's been placed on teams, he behaves in a brother-like manner and develops a family type bond with his teammates. And he has several romantic relationships which he remains on good terms with even after the relationships end. So he embodies that secure attachment. He has the ability to form successful relationships and have them not follow any of those negative patterns of avoiding intimacy. He's able to have that intimacy.
All right, so now that we've looked at Dick Grayson as the secure and the different other characters in the Batman series as having different other types of unhealthy attachment styles, let's say we have an unhealthy attachment style. What can we do about that?
Having an unhealthy attachment style can be addressed in therapy. It's not a lifelong sentence to relationship dysfunction by any means. The best thing we can do is be kind to ourselves and realize that this is just an issue and address it like you would any other health condition. So if you had diabetes, you wouldn't ignore medical care because you had diabetes. You would get it taken care of. And just like the same thing with attachment issues, if you know that you could possibly have an attachment disorder, going to therapy and getting it taken care of should be looked at in the same way. You can talk with a counselor and they can help you form those more healthy, fulfilling relationships and actually achieve intimacy and connection with other people. And having an unhealthy attachment style is actually really common, and you're not alone by any means. These examples are obviously very dramatic and dramatized, and often the effects are far more subtle. So if you find yourself avoiding personal relationships or having issues emotionally connecting with others in any ways that are fulfilling, please reach out and seek assistance.
Awesome. And as always, assistance is available here at our counseling office here at Student Wellbeing, and we invite you to come up and see us and have that discussion. And minors, thank you again for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you and your comments and talking to you soon.
Thanks, and have a great day. For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com.